Hi, my name is Daniel Posney, and this is part of Shifting Perspectives. And this is going to be about 10 or 15 minutes on this topic of when women don't trust men. And I honestly, I really relish the times when I can sit with women who don't trust men because there's a lot of compassion and empathy that comes from that, from being with them. And I can recognize how myself in the past wasn't really a person that women should trust. Not that I did anything overtly, but just my energy wasn't there, and I wasn't showing up in the highest, most conscious, loving, present way. And like a lot of us men, we weren't taught this, and we're just trying to make our way through and trying to conquer what's in front of us. So there's a lot of reason why that women would not trust men. And when you think about the society that we live in, that we have been living in, it is changing. We're in the middle of that change now. But where it has been is what I would call a wounded masculine society. So it's a place that's been kind of run by men, mostly older white men, just kind of call it out, that have been running it for themselves. And we all, other people and women, have had to fit into that somehow. And a lot of women, what they tend to do is to lean into their masculine energy so they can fit in and feel trust and feel safe in this out of balance society, in this environment. So when I usually work with women, it's usually they've asked for a session and they've said specifically, no men. I need a woman practitioner because I don't trust men, and these are the only people that I'm going to be able to listen to. But if the scheduler that is doing the retreat or is putting the people in front of them, if they know me, they'll say, that's true, but I invite you to spend some time with Daniel. So when that happens, I'm so excited about it because I've changed and I'm a person that can completely be trusted. And I know that's who I am now, and that's kind of how I show up. And I'm very authentic in my demeanor and my personality. And I have a lot of compassion for women and holding space for women. And that's just kind of what I've been doing for a lot of my life, not knowing exactly how to do it for a lot of my life, but I've just kind of been in that role. So I filled that role for a long time until I started to embrace more of my divine masculine side. And that just kind of amped everything up. So here I stand now in this divine masculine, and that shows up as a very trusting, comfortable, safe place to be. So when a woman can sit in front of that, it's kind of like something clicks inside. It says, this is different. This is something that he's not effeminate. He's not in touch with his masculine side, and yet he's a safe place to be and to express yourself and to be open with. So about where this comes from, why some women don't trust men, what I've seen in my experience is that most of the time it's because in their adult life something has happened. Men have betrayed them or suppressed them or oppressed them or abused them. But if you keep on looking more into that and look beyond that, there's usually something that happened in the childhood. And if you know me, it always goes back to the childhood. So I have a 3-step process. And the first step in that process is to discover when the first initial element of this happened. So let's say that you take distrust of the masculine or distrust of males. Why is that? Well, because I feel suppressed. I feel not heard. I feel, I've had physical and sexual, emotional, mental abuse from men. And so I have direct experience with it, and that's all very valid. And that has happened. But what I like to do is to go deeper than that so we can empower ourselves, so we can go beyond what's been happening in the adult life. And it always, 99% of the time, goes back to childhood. And even then, probably goes back to some parallel life that's happening on an even much greater level, but we're focusing on this life. So if we go back, if you're one of these people that doesn't trust men, if you go back to your childhood, there's probably some element of not being able to trust the masculine energy or the male energy. Could be some figure in your life that it was important or had authority over you. Could have been your father, could have been your older brother, but some kind of masculine authority figure. And the energy behind that figure is supposed to be safety and trust and security and just completely being there for you. Like I love what the Cherokee proverb says that I express a lot is, the male's job is to protect women so she is free to walk the earth unharmed. And if that hasn't happened to you in your childhood, whether it was done directly or inadvertently or consciously or unconsciously, it still happened. You still had the emotion of it. And even if nothing, quote, happened, if you had the perception of not feeling safe in the masculine energy, it could have been, could have been very real, but it also could have been something perceived, which is just as real. So you could say, I had a great childhood, my father was great, but there could have been one little instance that in the right, specific, sensitive, vulnerable time that said to you, I don't feel safe in this masculine energy. Maybe you had a male friend show up at the house, an uncle or a grandfather or a friend, and the way that he was just wasn't quite, or the way that something he said to you, it could trigger that little thing and cause a program to start to run that says, I can't trust this male or masculine energy. And on top of that, what you're actually saying, like when I say I don't trust the feminine energy, it's what I'm kind of saying beyond this life. I'm saying I can't trust the mother. And what you're saying is when you don't trust men or males, you don't trust the father. It could go that deep, that there's the father energy, the God energy, the creator energy, the all that is energy of that you feel safe in the world, that kind of thing, beyond just the physical role of a father, the father energy. It can kind of go into that, and that can play into different parts of your life. So even when I talk about this, I start to get chills up my spine about how deep and sensitive it can go into. So what do we do about this? Well, the first thing that you can do is, I know it's not an easy thing to do, but you got to take yourself out of this present moment adult life and get into the concept of everything has led to these experiences that I've had in my adult life, and they were all created and sprouted from my childhood sometime. Maybe even if you don't realize it or acknowledge it or remember it, just this is for you. This is for your healing. If you could say, I may not remember it, but it's got to come from there. Something sprouted early in my life and it carried through this for me. And if you want to hold on to just hating men or not feeling trust with men, that's very real for you. But where does that lead you to into your life? It leads you to just keep on, separating yourself from love of the masculine energy and your own masculine energy. So my point is that there's a real purpose for your benefit to look into this in a different way than you have ever in the past. So I know this is a real challenge, but I'm inviting you to look into this and say, could it be that I could heal this, that I could embrace the masculine energy in myself and then others of the other male masculine energies that do want to provide that protective, loving, safe space around me so that I could dance in the world, that there is that possibility. So the first thing to do is to say, okay, let's see if I can remember when something like this happened that caused me to distrust the male or masculine energy. And if you can find it, awesome. It's kind of like you discover it and it's not so hidden anymore. Oh my gosh, it happened way back then. And I probably carried it within me in my subconscious. If you don't remember it, that's cool too. If you could just imagine that something happened that's a similar energy that gets you pissed off or gets you feeling not very trusting of men, if you could kind of feel into that energy of how's that making you feel. It feels like I'm unsafe in the world. It feels like men are trying to get something from me, and all those things. If you could kind of fill in the blank there and then go back to your childhood and see maybe if that blank that was just filled in matches some experience in your life that you could imagine or remember. So now that you've got it where you've kind of, okay, I can kind of imagine where this might have come from. Wow, that's a huge place to get to. And that's much further than you've ever gotten to in your life. So now you've got something that's a possibility, that there's a possibility that you found that, okay, there's a reason for this. It's just not shit happening to me. So now you say, okay, I carry this with me. Wow, that's so powerful. I'm a creator being that I somehow, through my energy and through this program, let's just call it a program. It's not something that you are doing. It's just a program that runs in your subconscious that sort of does the right things or says the things that attracts the similar energy. And that's what I want to be really clear about is it's not that you brought this in or you caused this thing. It's nothing like that. It's just that where you live, where you've been vibrating is in the similar frequency of not feeling safe in the masculine energy, which causes the attraction of this unsafe masculine energy. So what do? You raise your frequency into a frequency of consciousness that is not your reality anymore. I know that sounds very kind of etheric or something, but that's just the way it works. And I know it's not something that maybe you've heard before, but that's been my experience is that when I want to experience something of a higher consciousness, I have to raise myself into a higher frequency of consciousness, or I just keep on complaining about how shitty my life is and how this keeps on happening to me. But that's the way that billions of people, or at least millions of people, live their lives, and they just kind of react to the world in the best way that they can. Or you can go to this other way where a small percentage of people actually look at their stuff and look at the shadow. It's called shadow work. And you go into it and you see where these things could have been created. So let me give you an example of this. So I'm working with this woman and she's in her 60s and she says, my experience has been men have always betrayed me and they've always cheated on me and never felt really safe around men because they're here and then they're gone. I can't really get into a relationship with a solid guy. So we start talking about this and we start to discover little things in the childhood. And she comes up with this memory. And she was about 3 years old and she was with a little friend. Little friend was 3 or 4 and both little girls walking down the street. Her grandfather, who was a great guy, comes up and goes to hold her hand, starts holding her hand, walking down the street. And then he sees the other little girl and he holds her hand. What her mind said, what she acknowledged right there in that moment in that room with her, she acknowledged that that little girl said, men are not going to find me enough, or they're going to have to go with another woman or another girl. I'm not going to be enough for men. So imagine that program just keeps on running every time she got into a relationship. There's that tiny little unseen, invisible program that says, I'm not enough for men and they'll want to, I won't be enough for them. So you can see how one little program can start to manipulate your life and start to do these things in a relationship. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. So I just want to be really clear. The process is realize that any healthy relationship is going to need to have that healthy relationship with the masculine. And your experiences of being abused and invalidated and not heard and suppressed by the masculine is completely valid and is completely true. But there is some before that experience that happened. So that's something that we need to look at. And that's the way that you can cure that or fix it or integrate that in your life so that you can have that healthy masculine around you. And there's only one part of you that doesn't want that. And the part of you that doesn't want that is the one that wants to keep the old program going. And that's all part of the egoic mind. And the egoic mind doesn't really want to be healed, doesn't really want to be supported by the masculine or anybody. It wants to keep the old story going. So it kind of builds itself up that way. So what you need to do, or what I invite you to do, is start to take control of your ship. And that means start to take ownership of your own responsibilities and say, this is something that I want, meaning I am that presence, the heart, the consciousness. I want to be fully supported by the masculine, which is the going forward, responsible, innovative energy. That energy, you want to be supported by that. And you can see how if you reject the masculine, there's a lot of taking action, going forward, responsible energy that isn't also embraced. So you want this, but your egoic mind wants to fight with it. So it's time for you to say, you're not going to control me anymore. Even though you're making me believe that I'm you, I'm not you. So there's a little bit of that. Now I want to talk about what men can do when they see this. When you find a woman that doesn't trust you, or is thinking about not trusting men, the thing that you can do is make sure that you're showing up not only physically, but energetically in a way that says, I'm not going to show her the same negative qualities that she got from every other man, from her father, from her brother, from her terrible uncle, or whoever, that you're not going to show up energetically the same way. If she has the experience of not feeling supported by men, or not feeling like she's heard, that kind of thing, then your job is to make sure that you could do your best to make sure that she's heard up to a point. So there's a little piece there that you do your best to remove her burdens and to make sure that you're not causing more pain. And then the rest of it is her work. So it's not your job to fix the whole thing. It's your job to be aware of the energy and make sure that you don't make it worse. So your job is to support her and to heal this for herself, and then not cause any more pain. And when you do slip up and you do cause pain, you didn't show up in the best way that you possibly could, then that's your work. Then that's your piece to say, okay, there's something for me to work on here. There's a reason why she and I, or he and I, are together here, that, you know, they're working on this thing here, but I've also got a piece in it. So there's something in there to work on. Like, for instance, for me, I feel like it's been a long time since I wasn't really trustworthy, but there has been this energetic piece to me that I've been working on, about showing up energetically in a more compassionate, open way. And I feel like I do a pretty good job at that, but sometimes I slip up. So I may not show up energetically right at that perfect time when my wife needs that piece from me, and I slip up. So what do? I forgive myself and I work on it, and I see where I slipped up. So it's not just I say, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, promise I will never happen again. That's not what needs to happen. That's only part of what needs to happen. I need to work on what I need to work on, and then both of us to see what our piece is on the whole thing. So I think that's all I got for this short time. I hope this helps. If you want more on this subject, just contact me and we can work together. But this is something that I've seen in a lot of relationship work and inner work that I do. And it must mean something. It must mean that I've got some karma. It must mean that I've done some shit in the past, that I'm balancing. I'm not paying for it, but I'm balancing out right now. So I'm just allowing it in. Yep, more women are here to experience what that feels like to be with a man that they can truly trust. So thank you so much. I love you. Thank you, and bless you. Have a wonderful day.